Welcome, guys, to another episode of Humansplanning. This is two, and I'm doing with Brent Jones. It's about real sovereignty and taking back yours, and this is the year to do it. I mean, there's never been a better time. So if you haven't seen part one yet, I'll leave it below. Go check that out. And Brendan's got a lot of information prepared today. So, Brendan, welcome to the show, and let's get into it, man.
Thank you very much, Guy. Yeah, I'm very glad to be back. So today, last part we went over sort of the mindset, the hows and the whys of status correction and exercising your rights as a sovereign natural man or woman. So now today I'm going to be going into some of the specifics on where we get the procedure, why we have to do this paperwork, and the meaning behind some of the laws and the regulations. Particularly, I'm going to be going through the ones present within the United States. But understand that what it is that I'm talking about does apply in almost every country in the world. So it will have its own version. If you're participating with us, feel free to share with us some of your research. Obviously, keep your gold nuggets, but share the things that need to be shared. And we will be shelling out a template for every country so that every country can go through this similar process. And Australia is looking like Australia is finna be the first one. So the first one I'm going to go into here, this is called the House Joint Resolution Act 192, 73-10. And I'm going to pull it up right now, and I will share my screen.
Guys, you might want to grab a notepad for this one.
Okay. All right, am I up?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. So this is so see the 73D here. This is like the subsection. This is the first session of Congress. This is June 3rd and June 5th, 1933. And so this first beginning here is they always start with a payment. So they had to pay these tribes right here. The Secretary of Interior joint resolution is authorizing the Secretary of War to receive instruction at the West Point Academy, pushing in. So this part right here is just having to do with West Point. And we're going to here. This is the important part. So right here, this is joint resolution. Let me get a cursor. Joint resolution to assure uniform value to the coins and currencies of the United States. All right. That's very important. Uniform value, meaning they are actually assuring here that the dollar is always a dollar, meaning no longer is the dollar based off of the value of an ounce of gold. This is the act in the United States that removed the dollar from the gold standard. This right here is the law that said no more are we basing the value of the dollar off gold. And we're going to go through it here. Whereas the holding of or dealing in gold affect the public interest and are therefore subject to proper regulation and restriction. And whereas the existing emergency, the Great Depression, has disclosed that provisions of obligations which purport to give the obligee a right to require payment in gold or a particular kind of coin or currency of the United States or in an amount in money of the United States measured thereby, obstruct the power of the Congress to regulate the value of the money of the United States, and are inconsistent with the declared policy of the Congress to maintain at all times the equal power of every dollar coined or issued by the United States in the markets and in the payment of debts. Now, that's a very long sentence, so I'm going to go through it real quick right here. So this says right here, the existing emergency has disclosed that provisions of obligations, meaning provisions of obligations mean if I give you a bill or a receipt and in there I say you must pay me $50, that's a provision. Okay? So when the provision says the obligee, meaning the one holding the bill, the one handing the bill over, the one who created the bill, gives them a right to require payment in gold or a particular kind of coin or currency. So what this means is the ability to actually give someone a demand for payment, you must pay me in gold, is now declared inconsistent with the policies of Congress to maintain the value of the dollar. They're saying right here, we can no longer control the value of the dollar as long as people are allowed to ask for a particular kind of currency. Now, therefore be it resolved by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that every provision contained in or made with respect to any obligation, that means any provision. Can you see it all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any provision contained with respect to an obligation to give the obligee a right to require payment in gold or a particular kind of coin or currency or an amount of money the United States measured thereby is declared to be against public policy, and no such provision shall be contained in or made with respect to any obligation hereafter incurred. So that means from here on out, no longer is any obligation, any bill of sale, allowed to require a particular kind of coin or currency.
Right. So say I wanted to be paid in silver or these days Bitcoin or whatever, that was no longer allowed, or at least I couldn't specify that I wanted to be paid in exactly gold and nothing else. Is that correct?
Yep. In fact, you couldn't specify any coin or currency, even dollars.
Right. Okay.
So every obligation, every bill, that's important. Not public obligations, not government obligations, every obligation. Heretofore or hereafter incurred, meaning currently or in the future. Whether or not any provision is contained therein or made with respect to, shall be discharged upon payment, dollar for dollar, in any coin or currency which at the time of payment is legal tender for public and private debts. So I'm going to leave that highlighted real quick. So that means... That means if a bill contains a provision which says that it requires a payment of gold or currency, now that will be discharged upon payment in whatever legal tender is being used. So that means the dollar bill, if I give you a bill that says you owe me 60 shillings of gold, that will now be discharged, meaning that charge will now be dissolved. It will be taken away upon payment. So if I pay you 60 shillings in gold and I audit you and I let Congress know, hey, this guy did this, they will discharge the debt. They will go to you and say, remove that bill. And then they will in dollars, okay, refund the individual.
Okay.
So any provision contained in any law authorizing obligations to be issued by or under authority of the United States is hereby repealed. But the repeal of any such provision shall not invalidate any other provision or authority contained in such law. So that also means that if a law says that an individual must now pay in gold for the discharging of debt to like let's say that you got a court order and you had to pay $10,000, that is now also no longer legal. So it can be discharged. You can audit them. As used in this resolution, and they define this too, the term obligation means an obligation payable in money of the United States. and the term coin or currency means coin or currency of the United States, including Federal Reserve notes and circulating notes of Federal Reserve banks and national banking associations. So that means coin or currency includes dollar bills. It includes these Federal Reserve notes. It also includes bonds. It includes gold and silver. And it's...
So what's the difference between currency and money?
That's a great question. So currency is where the word current comes from. Okay? Or vice versa. Current and currency, those two are the same. So currency actually can only exist in circuitry. So like gold and silver are currency because they're actually circuits. They actually create circuits. The current of the body is also what we can call your currency. So your energy would be the same as your currency in your body because it moves through the circuitry of your nerves. Money, on the other hand, is what we can call legal tender, meaning it's accepted as value for a currency. It's usually a piece of paper, but it's some sort of like arbitrary number or arbitrary unit that is accepted for value as currency, but it is not actually currency. So like dollar legal tender is not the same as lawful currency.
Right.
So that's
fiat currency is not lawful currency.
Correct. It's legal tender.
Right.
And the last sentence of paragraph 1 of section 43 of the act, entitled "An Act to Relieve the Existing National Economic Emergency by Increasing Agricultural Purchasing Power to raise revenue for extraordinary expenses incurred by reason of such emergency, to provide emergency relief with respect to agricultural indebtedness, to provide for the orderly liquidation of joint stock land banks, and for other purposes," is amended to read as follows. So they had, a month ago, created an act to raise the purchasing power of the dollar. So now they're amending it by saying all coins and currencies of the United States incurred in the Federal Reserve notes, heretofore and hereafter coined or issued, shall be legal tender for all debts, public and private, public charges, taxes, duties, and dues, except that gold coins, when below the standard weight and limit of tolerance provided by law for a single piece, shall be legal tender only by valuation in proportion to their actual weight. Yeah, so that's the end of 73-10 of the House Joint Resolution. And so that short little resolution says right there, no longer are we based upon any real value anymore. The entire system is now based off of belief alone. It's only based off of the belief of the power of the Federal Reserve note. So what this means now is that if somebody bills me, okay, I file a 1099 OID. If they're a public entity, right, like a grocery store, like a big chain grocery store, they are a public entity. Okay, so they are under the rule of this House Joint Resolution. Okay, this applies to them, and it also applies to your straw man. It applies to your any of your public entities and private entities, for that matter. So
what's the difference between a public and a private entity?
A public entity is something that has public interest. So, like, for example, Amazon is a public entity, meaning many people can claim interest into it. But a private entity, only a single man or woman can claim interest in it. Or at least only he is the arbiter of what is done with that entity. So, for example, me, the flesh and blood man, I'm a private entity. So I am the one who decides who interfaces with me. But a public entity is under the jurisdiction of the public. Yep. It's under public rule. And so the difference between, and now that question is actually, I could go on for hours about that. But that question right there is what separates slaves from sovereigns.
Gotcha.
A slave is 100% public entity. He has no private estate whatsoever.
Right.
A sovereign uses his public entity as a transmitting utility. Uses it as a commercial utility, uses it as something he uses to conduct commerce, but it is not him.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. He indemnifies the public entity, meaning he protects the public entity from injury. He protects. So this resolution right here made it to where if a grocery store charges me $50, okay, I send that receipt into the IRS, which is also a creature of Congress. IRS was created by the Congress, and it will audit the company. They will go in and say, "Hey, we noticed that you created an obligation which requires a form of payment in United States dollars. You, according to House Joint Resolution 192, you must get rid of this. This has to go away." So they discharge it, meaning they remove the obligation from their books. You take that receipt, you send them the receipt, and then they send you the money back. They send you the $50 back so they can discharge that debt, get rid of it. They get rid of the bill entirely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Because there's actually no way to pay the bill. When I hand the cashier $50, she hands me a receipt that says $50 on it. No debt actually got paid. Nothing actually happened. So now the debt's being discharged. It's actually just going away. And so when that happens, they have to give you back the debt dollars. Because otherwise they're holding on. It's off in the books. Okay, there's no bill, but somehow they're plus 50 in their books. They have to give that 50 to the IRS, who then gives it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense? So this is how the Clintons and all these other people stay so rich.
Right.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, have they sort of taken from the laws of nature, like electrolysis and the way that negative and positive ions work in electricity, and how when there's a positive charge and a negative charge, they have to find a way of balancing out because they're always focused on how to balance the book.
Every single law made by man is some sort of copy of nature's laws. Now, there is a misconception that man came from nature. It's actually the other way around. Nature came from man.
Okay, do you want to go into that a bit, or did you want to leave that for another episode?
Just a little bit, because this is the whole idea of sovereignty. Because if anyone's read the Bible before, it's very clear that man made nature. Okay? After all of nature was created, they had no name and no purpose. Once man was created, God said to man, name every creature and have dominion over it. And when you name something, you can control it. Meaning, if I name a fish, I've now designated the role of this fish. When I say fish, everyone knows what a fish is. But before, this is in biblical language, so it's very allegorical. But before consciousness came to the scene, there was no nature. There was no order to how things went. It was the consciousness that created order. So man watched nature and formulated the order of nature, and then proceeded to act in accordance to the order that was created within their own consciousness. So
I see what you're saying. That's quite deep, yeah.
yeah, but this is how the governments get away with all the oil drilling, all the resource exploitation, because they understand it's actually man who has say in nature. It's especially for younger people, we want to act like we're trying to save the earth when we're doing these like things to help us with the environment. No, we are completely 100% saving ourselves, because the earth is its own entity. The earth is alive, and the earth does not care what we do with its resources. The earth only cares that it can fulfill its mission, maintain its orbit, maintain maintain its agreement with the cosmos that it is to fulfill, that is much deeper than a human being can currently understand at this moment. Okay, the earth is its own conscious, living, breathing entity with such vast intelligence that if you were to look upon its soul, if you were to look at its true form directly, you would be fried instantly. This is why they say the center of the earth is so hot. It's not that it's full of like lava or anything. It's so hot because it's a shining bright light. It's its soul. It's its core. It's the light that exists within us. It's the same light, except it's equivalent to millions and millions of souls forming itself into one big soul. That's what the earth is. And
Fuck, man, you're going really deep.
yes, because these people know this. Why do you think Hitler and all those people worked with all those occultists? Because he understood it's about the force. It's all about having the force and using it. So this is a force. This big piece of paper right here that I just read, this is a major force that got slapped and signed and sealed and completely changed the game for everybody in the United States. And then every country followed suit. You know, there's no countries on the gold standard anymore.
So would you say it's something like human beings in our original form, if we have an original form and we're not just continuously evolving as consciousness, but before all these paper documents came along, we recognized light and heat and electricity as power, but now we recognize pieces of paper and the people who wield those pieces of paper as power, because it represents where our power actually comes from, which is the light, the heat, and more primal than that, even the consciousness itself, right?
That's absolutely correct. The money that you get every week from your paycheck from your 9-to-5 job is a representation of your labor. You were
So
given
we're living
that
in
money.
like a fictional hologram now rather than the real matrix or the real world.
That's absolutely correct. We're living inside of a fake matrix inside of the real matrix. Because it's the same as why there's a difference between legal and lawful. Legal means fictional. Code. It's code for real life, the law. Real life is the law. Okay, what you put out is what you get back. That's the law. And so then they turn a legal code into that of if you get a loan from the bank, you have to pay it back. You know, they took real life and then they created a legal fiction that says if you sign this piece of paper, you have to give this many pieces of paper back to me.
And what a lot of people don't recognize is that these people are the people that created this system and perpetuate it. At least the ones who perpetuate it knowingly. A lot of people are perpetuating unknowingly. They're death worshippers. So we look at the stars, we look at the planet, we look at the animals, the trees. They're all alive. They're all living parts of nature. But when we look at documents, they're written on dead trees. And before that, they were written on dead animal skins. So they always perform these rituals, ceremonies, and rites in dead ways, and they also have these rituals that are based upon rote learning and rote memorization. Well, nature never really repeats things over and over again. Repetition is something that man has learned to do in this artificial world. And so everything has to be done by the letter rather than by the spirit, right?
That's correct, because in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. So they are using the Spirit, but they are representing themselves as separate entities in order to exercise power. So, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be very easily used. Man, I think it loads is slow. It can be very easily used to invoke a fear into people. Like if I knocked on your door and I just wore a little badge that says IRS on it, all of a sudden you're going to be scared of me. Versus if I walk into the door and I'm wearing a badge that says Jehovah's Witness on it, you're just going to laugh and close the door on me. No offense to any Jehovah's Witnesses, but you know what your image is. So I'm going to take us through a few. This is U.S. Code, Chapter 1, Subsection 1. Words denoting number, gender, and so forth. So this is definitions. Okay? And it's I'm going right here to the 6th line. Can you see it all right?
Person and whoever includes corporation, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals.
Yep. So that is page 1 of U.S. Code. Page 1. Very important. So so now we can go into the Constitution. Okay. And while that's loading, Constitution. While that's loading.
I noticed that gender comes into this as well. Is the whole LGBTQ plus movement, is it coming from a legalese point of view on a more esoteric level? Like, are the people that started this or are pushing it in a certain direction, do they have a certain legal agenda, do you think?
Absolutely. The words Latino, black, white, gay, lesbian, transgender, these are all commercial entities. Okay, these are all things pertaining to commerce. If you look, one of the main in the United States, I can't remember his name, but we have someone running for president who one of his main points is that he's openly gay. Okay, they're making this now a public matter. And because, dude, people are confused. I'm going to just be honest with you. People are very, very confused with sexuality and what it's for. I want everybody to be very clear. Sexuality, sexual energy is not the same as intercourse. Okay? Your biology, your body is a source of immense power. And they love for you to give up your power by fucking with its chemistry and by removing organs which you think are not necessary. Okay? That is not to say whatever you choose to do in private, that's what you do in private. I have no qualms with that, and I don't think anybody has any qualms with that. But if you have to go out and publicly make people recognize you and respect you as a certain kind of thing, It just shows you are not confident in your decisions. If you have to demand respect from other people, remember, respect is earned. There's no way to demand respect if you have to constantly be demanding respect from other people just to feel okay in your own skin. You're just looking at it the wrong way. You're not a bad person, but you're confused. You don't even understand how to behave as an individual because you've been told it's so important that you figure out what your sexual identity is. Okay, your identity is completely made up by you, but the organs you were born with is not. So it's very, very confusing when you want to identify as a woman, but you don't have any female parts. And so the only solution you have is because you are so dead set on being identified as a woman that you think removing your organs and injecting hormones is the solution. All that's just going to do is make you feel even more uncomfortable, in my opinion. Again, any transgender people out there, this is not to knock you guys, but at the same time, understand that you are not your body. So, regardless of how spiritual you are, if you still identify with this body, you have come at it the wrong way. You have not been listening to what the masters have told us. Okay, read the Bhagavad Gita. It's very clear. There was never a time when you and I did not exist, O Arjuna, slayer of the enemy. And there will never be a time where you and I do not exist, nor anybody on this battlefield. You cannot possibly kill your brothers and sisters. You can only slay their body. But they will get another body after this. The only difference between me and you is that I remember all the bodies that I had before. You do not. But that is why you have me. But yes, that is a whole agenda. Notice now that it's all over the news everywhere. Everyone's talking about LGBTQ plus, everything. It's they would love to be able to section everybody off as numbers and corporate persons. Now, I am taking us to the 14th Amendment. Here we go. So we went over persons, right? That a person is a corporation. We went over that. So now I'm going to read you the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So all persons are now citizens. Very important. And of the state wherein they reside. So you're not only a citizen of the United States, you're also a citizen of the state that you live inside of. So I am a citizen of the United States. I'm also a citizen of Texas. Being a state citizen is different from being a citizen of the United States. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within his jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So then it goes on and on and on and on and on. But it says it right here. All persons born or naturalized, meaning if you were born here and got a birth certificate, or you became a natural citizen through their process, you're now a citizen of both the United States and of the state. And so now we get citizen equals person, person equals corporation, corporation equals dead entity makes you piece of property makes you a slave. Very clear cut. This is why we do status correction. This right here, what I just showed you, those things together, and then we're going to look at how the process of authenticating your birth certificate actually gives you ownership of your person. This is Minnesota Rule 220. Okay. Rule 220, birth certificates. The registrar of titles is authorized to receive for registration of memorials upon any outstanding certificate of title an official birth certificate pertaining to a registered owner named in said certificate. Registered owner. Okay. In said certificate of title showing the date of birth of said registered owner, providing there is attached to said birth certificate an affidavit of an affiant who states that he or she is familiar with the facts recited, stating that the party named in said birth certificate is the same party as one of the owners named in said certificate of title, and that thereafter the registrar of titles shall treat said registered owner as having attained the age of majority at a date of 18 years after the date of birth shown by said certificate. So, long story short, this says you're now authorized to register a certificate of title pertaining to a registered owner, and that if a person files an affidavit of ownership with the same name as the name on the birth certificate, they are now treated as the owner in said certificate of title. Does that make sense?
So when you're 18, you can claim your birth certificate, is what you're saying. But until then, it is held by the state. Is that right?
Yeah.
Held by the.
This rule says how you gain ownership of your certificate, and so it's saying that a registered owner exists. Okay. A registered owner exists pertaining to a registered owner named in said certificate. So
is the registered owner your flesh and blood you, not the paper you?
Yes.
Okay.
But when they spell your name in all capital letters, anytime that your name is spelled in all caps, they're removing all your rights. Your mother signed that piece of paper agreeing, yes, you can spell my child's name in all capital letters. Yes, you can revoke his rights. Please store him in your warehouse facility. And the law says only after you've reached the age of majority at 18 years and have claimed ownership of your property is it actually yours. You have to claim ownership, and the way you do that is through Minnesota Rule 220. You authenticate the certificate, and let me make sure I get the word here.
So just to simplify it, would it be correct to say that most people do not truly own themselves because they don't understand what this article is saying?
That's absolutely correct. Not only do they not understand it, they have no idea it even exists. Okay. All the government has to do is publish their laws in a publication site or publication book. They do not have to make an announcement to anybody that a new law has been passed. Okay, if you look, they're showing the Donald Trump impeachment trials every day, all day. But how many times have y'all actually seen a video of Congress coming together and passing a House Joint Resolution Act? Okay, you got plenty of footage of Parliament yelling at each other. But then how much of that do you actually see them sitting down and signing papers and then reading the paper off? When do they ever actually read the bill that they're passing? Never.
Yeah.
Never they do. Never will they, because they don't have to do that. Okay? Their whole system is based off of assumption that you do not know your own rights and that you do not know the rules, and they intentionally word it like this so that you are discouraged from figuring out what it means. Like, it's hard to know, but in this, it makes it uses certain words. Like, let me make sure. Let me find it.
Just the image that comes to mind when you say that is how in movies, the wizard is always depicted as using these magical phrases that no one understands before they cast a spell. It's like the more mysterious sounding the phrase is, the more power that spell has.
That's absolutely correct. They say, bubble, bubble, toil and trouble, fire, burn, like blah, 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 blah. And what they're doing is evoking emotion. Like, if you've ever read any of the Catholic, like, prayer books, you'll see they're very long and drawn out. They're very poetic. And that's on purpose. The point is to evoke an emotion and use that emotion to channel, because prayer's real. Okay, if I sit here, my palms out, and I focus my energy to a target, we live in a sea of mind. It will go to that target. And it's specifically love energy, which is an impersonal energy. When it gets to the target, if it is blocked by a target, it will come back to the receiver and then go back and multiply itself by 4. And then again, it takes a tremendous amount of energy to block love energy, true love energy. But most people have never or rarely experienced true love because they only know how to love in a personal manner. Okay, they only know how to love one or two people very personally. But a true enlightened being, if you want to call them, knows how to love all impersonally, like a Christ or a Siddhartha or a Krishna. They know how to love all impersonally. They say in the Gita that Krishna will help anybody who asks him, whether it be a god or a demon. He will assist anybody who requests his help because he has an impersonal love for everybody. And so it's much easier to love people impersonally when you know you're not actually a person. It is very easy to start doing this process when you realize your person is something you use. It's like a puppet. It's a mask. It's a game. And most people don't realize, if you don't know you're playing a game, the game sucks. Okay? Let's say you were playing Call of Duty, but you thought it was real. You would not be having a very good time. But if you know it's a game, you're like, oh, I died. Oh well. And then next, same thing with this life. Oh, I died. Death is an initiation. You go through countless initiations. I'm referencing a lot of teachings from Dr. George King. I'll send you some links to him, but very powerful. Dr. George King, he is a true yoga master of the West. And he taught very clearly that the only energy crisis that this realm has is a spiritual energy crisis. Now, there's no difference between spiritual energy and physical energy. It's just as physical, but the vibration of that energy is of a different scale. Okay? So when he says when you die, you go to a physical place, just as physical as this, except the vibration, the rate of vibration is just so much higher that when you die, you will very much look at this life as a sleep state. You will very much look at this present condition as being asleep because it's just so much more alive in the higher realms. Okay, we incorrectly call it the spirit world. But the spirit world exists right here. Right here is the spirit world. Except right here, me and you could be sitting inside of an ocean on another plane of existence. And then at the same time, we could be sitting inside of a grand temple on yet another plane of existence. And then at the same time, we could be sitting on a mountain, and on and on and on. And so the people who have made humanity domicile, made them dormant, made them submissive, they have taken advantage of them on all levels, not just physically, but they have zapped them of their spiritual connection. They have zapped them of any knowledge that they actually exist in multiple realms at the same time. That inside of this body is actually many bodies that exist. And that it's powered by something which was never, ever born and will never, ever die. And it's impersonal. It created the person. But at the same time, that energy was created by a very intelligent person, the most intelligent. We call him God. Okay? You can say that this whole universe is God's body. So God is also a man. That's why they say we were created in his image. And then he also has an impersonal aspect. But that intelligence is independent from our intelligence. And that's why people pray, because they can actually communicate with that intelligence. But the intelligence is non-different from us. It's still the same, except it does not fall into illusion like we would. There's an incorrect assumption in many Advaitist schools, the Maya Vedas, many Buddhists. They believe that the ultimate reality is nothing. It's non-existent. It's impersonal. But actually, that nothing, that non-existence, that impersonality is an effulgence. It's an emanation which comes from the true person, or the one true intelligence. How can something non-personal now all of a sudden become personal? Because you and me are persons in one way, not in the legal way. We're men and women, however you want to call it. But you catch my drift. We feel as if we exist independently. That there's a difference between me and you. And that difference is not a difference in substance. It's a difference in degree of the rate of the happenings of that substance. You know, the combination, the ratios, the movement. That's the difference. Okay, you had a certain set of experiences that I have not had. And so that molded and shaped you into who you are today. But it's still made out of the same stuff that I'm made out of. Whether it be memories, whether it be experiences, whether it be flesh and blood, still made out of the same. And so too are we made out of the same substance as the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being has ultimate memory, ultimate truth, ultimate everything. And so he must also be classified as the ultimate person, just as much as he must be classified as the ultimate source of non-personhood. Because there's also many things in this universe which are not a person, like this computer. But it can be instilled with person-like characteristics, like an artificial intelligence. And that is instilled, that comes from the real person, me and you. So that's the logic behind, that's like what the Vaishnavas believe. And that's something I subscribe to too, because it's perfectly logical. Okay, this does not require that you have a certain faith in anything or any belief. Faith is just the understanding of who you are. Having faith is just knowing who you are. Okay? Faith has nothing to do with believing in somebody you've never met before. Because the faith you're supposed to be having in God actually exists within inside of yourself. And so this is why, going back to the status correction, the birth certificate says we own your body and soul. We not only own your body, we own your intelligence. And we determine through our school system, through how we process you through the whole thing, we make sure we determine how it is you view yourself. Most people view themselves as a nobody who's trying to make themselves something. Okay, most people view themselves as, I have to make something out of my life. But you already have. Before you even entered into this realm, you already created all the experiences you're going to experience. You created all those things for yourself, and now you're playing them through. And it's like improv, and you're just moving through the whole thing. Now, you're finally being given the script to the show. You thought it was improv the whole time, but you actually already had a script written for you in the back, but you forgot it. And the people upstairs, the people up in the government buildings did not forget the script. They found it, okay? And then they started rewriting the script and giving you little pieces of it. But now you're about to find the master copy. And so in this process, you actually find not even just legal sovereignty, but you find the key to understanding that I am not a person, that I am actually, and I'm not even a man. I am living inside of this man. And who this man is a culmination of everything I've ever done, everything I've ever experienced, now and in the past and in the future. And that everything that I'm doing is connected to everything else. There are no separate timelines. All timelines are one, and they all interconnect with one another. And right now, we're making a decision. Are we going to be in the timeline of control? Or are we going to turn this into a timeline of actual freedom and actual creative expression? And the first thing you need to do is not fight this system and not degrade it and not say how horrible it is. It's remove yourself from it and do what you know you're supposed to be doing.
And would you say, Brendan, that if someone really wants to know the truth and if they really want to be free, that no matter what obstacles and challenges are placed on their path, that they will be given every opportunity by the universe, which is ultimately another version of themselves, to step into that truth and step into that freedom. And that if we put out an intention, the universe will give us a little bit to see whether or not we're ready to go to the next level. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. The word coincidence is actually coincidence. Nothing happens by accident. Everything is intentional. And so, understand, you may have forgotten, but everything you ever wanted to do, you've already determined that before you even incarnated. You even entered into this body. And so this is what we call destiny. Okay, you write your own destiny, but you planned this whole thing out before you got here. Now, plans change, and it's a natural part of life. But if you've made a plan and you've stuck to it, you will be given every single opportunity to do this. I can just say, on terms of the status correction, I've known about this since I was about 16 years old. And many, many, many times I had the opportunity to actually follow through on it. But I was afraid. And so I wasn't ready yet. And so over and over and over again, I was given opportunities to do it. And then finally, when I decided that I'm just going to do this on my own, as soon as I decided I was going to do this on my own and I stopped being afraid, I wasn't afraid of the consequences, going to jail or like that I was going to do it wrong. As soon as I made that decision, I met Dynamo, who had done it himself. And I had 100% certainty at that point that because he did it himself, and not only that, he's willing to put his name on the line to show anyone else how to do it. That's how I knew I made it. And that is just that's happened with everything in my life. I didn't think I'd be doing this. I didn't think I'd have my own established business where I share with everybody not only information that has changed my life, but also the opportunity to actually work with me hand in hand and build something. I never thought I'd always thought I'd have to be working for somebody else. As soon as I decided I'm done working for other people, I'm working for myself, then everything was set up for me. It's like all of a sudden people started wanting to hire my service. Everyone started asking me, how much do you charge this? How much do you charge that? I started off with the landscaping and it just blew up from there. Now I'm here doing this, and it's the same process. So anybody can do this. So I promise you, if you purchase the course, even if you just sign up, if you do some research, look up what it is that I've shown you, I promise you, life will give you every single opportunity to act on this information. If you want to discharge all your debt, if you want to always be refunded for anything you purchase from a public entity, I promise you, you can have it. Anything. If you want it, just go and get it. Me and Dynamo, literally a week ago, we were at the store. I was buying myself some new shoes. And he said, dude, you like those? I'm like, yeah. He said, just get them. Just get them. If you want something, get it. Don't think about it. Don't hesitate. If you want it, get it. And now, ever since then, that's how I've been. So you're 100% correct, guy. If you calm down for a second and realize that this whole thing you made for yourself, you set it all up yourself. You even agreed to who was going to be your family members, who would be your friends. You know, you even determined what kind of ventures, what kind of journeys you would take on this path. Once you realize that you made all that for yourself, then you can relax. You don't have to figure it all out. You already figured it out. You already had the whole thing planned out. Now you're teaching the human. You're teaching the human how to adapt and change to these things. Okay? I'm always talking to Brendan. Notice the difference. I am always talking to Brendan, saying, all right, Brendan, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And I've made it very clear with Brendan, you only listen to me. Any of those other voices you hear, nah. Only me. And that's what we call the silent voice or whatever. You can call him the holy guardian angel. He has a million names. But it's called Ishvara in Sanskrit, the supreme controller, the thing which runs and controls all things. That's the real I. That's the self. All this is in the Bhagavad Gita. That's the true self. And the me's, the small identities, those are all literally just single thoughts. So like the image you have of yourself, the story you have of yourself, you know, how you define yourself through your past experiences, those are literally just thoughts. And when you identify with a thought, you will always feel small. But when you identify with the self, which is aloof to all thoughts, which enjoys them, but is never bound to them, then you are free. Then you are a sovereign. This is what's called enlightenment. Okay? I promise you, if you correct your status, you will become enlightened. I can make that a promise. Because even if you're not enlightened when you finish the paperwork, you will be enlightened because you'll be inspired to figure out, okay, so if this works like that, then how does all this other stuff work? And then you're going to figure it out. You're going to be like, well, how do I work? Guaranteed enlightenment.
I think we've got the name for our show, man. Enlightenment Guaranteed, or Guaranteed Enlightenment.
Guaranteed enlightenment.
Nice. So you've got a webinar coming up tomorrow, is it?
Yeah, so for you, it would be tomorrow. It will be on Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, which for Australian Western Time, I believe, is 5 a.m. on Monday. Is that correct?
It would be...
Because you're ahead of me, right? Yeah, it's the 25th for you right now?
Yeah, so the 26th. Yeah.
Yeah, so January 26th at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time is January 27th, 5 a.m. Australian Western Time.
Yeah. So the day after Australia Day.
Yeah.
We've got a public holiday, yeah, which a lot of Australians like to spend drinking and, yeah, just, you know, celebrating their life as a public citizen. But hopefully after this year, maybe that'll all change and we won't need Australia Day anymore.
Maybe y'all can actually celebrate the land you live on rather than the pieces of paper that created the name Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you want to sign up for the webinar, it's shoot me you can shoot me a message on Facebook. You can message me, just get in contact with me. You can hit us up at theenergyexchange369@gmail.com. And the webinar will run $24.99, but you have to sign up for the status correction course. If you have not signed up for the status correction course, sign up for the course, and then that way you can participate in the webinar. And we will be going through mostly people in the United States, but for example, for you, so if you would participate in the webinar and you're from Australia, we will make sure we get with you specifically on the process. So no one's going to be left out. And then you would actually, your case would be the template for all future Australian participants, because we're going to make sure that everybody in every country is able to do this.
Awesome, man. I'm looking forward to it. And there's definitely going to be a part 3, right? So we've covered the 14th Amendment today, and I'm not sure if you had any more stuff planned for today, but we can pick up where we left off from if you'd like to do that. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. The next one we'll go through, we'll probably be going through definitions, just some basic definitions, and then I want to go a little bit into UCC files. But we'll get to that.
Wait, I've got to make sure I get this episode up before the webinar.
Hey, it don't matter, man. Even if you you can even just clip the preview.
Yeah, true.
You know?
True.
If you can't edit the whole thing, just clip that one little part where I tell you where the webinar is and say, "Hey guys, new podcast coming up soon," and just have that, But you're like emergency upload or whatever. You can make it to where it's like Are we still recording?
Yeah, we're still going, man.
So you want to, dude, this is a little marketing secret I'm going to teach you. You can decide to publish this or not, but this is something for all you to know. You got to make it to where your content, dude, people have to click on it, man. They're like, oh, dude, guy had Brendan on. He had the guy from 0 Point University. Bro, I got to watch that one. There's something in there I need to see. So that's what I do. I say emergency upload. See this now. This has to get out. But, just stuff like that. Just it gets people going. It gets their juices flowing.
It's obviously working for you, man, because the video I did last time with you is probably one of the more watched videos that I've uploaded so far. So I'm going to do that, man. Good.
And we're gonna keep collabing, bro, because I'm about to finish setting up my podcast. And then I will most definitely have you on because I've been doing most of the talking. I know for a fact that you got some golden gems yourself of information to share. So I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely.
Yeah, whatever you want to talk about, dude. Everything I do is pretty much off the top. All I did was have the documents and say I'm going to talk about these, and these, but I had no script, nothing prepared. I just read through it. So, but I'm like, I'm a super nerd.
It shows, man. You're obviously like an expert when it comes to sovereignty. So I'm happy to see whatever it is that you dive into next, man. I'm just enjoying the content that you're putting out there, and I'm up to part 3 so far with the status correction. So I'll be looking at status part 4 today, and just like I said, getting the video up. So I'm going to be ready for this webinar, man. I'm going to make the most of it.
Okay, very good. So let me send me a message on Facebook, and I will confirm your spot, and I'll send you the PayPal link and everything, and then that way get you all situated.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Brendan, and thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you all in part 3.
Much love, everyone.